you recently wrote a piece about the 13 soldiers we lost that day. Tell us about that.
I like to use, language that is just true. I mean, they were murdered. These 13 soldiers were murdered by a suicide bomber. And they didn't have this. It's not how it needed to go down. Like sometimes, and I've lost friends in Afghanistan, and, sometimes things are going to happen, right? You're going to have IEDs or suicide bombers or things like that. But the rushed and botched withdrawal just made it ripe for something like that to happen. And it's never easy to lose, I think, American, men and women in uniform. But I think what really made it so maddening was the reaction to it. And it's a whole slew of things. I mean, when you think about, that these 13 died, then you have countless others who lost limbs, who have traumatic brain injury from the event, and all the people who, are more than likely suffering from PTSD. And then you have, a president who's touted as having all of this empathy and, being able to understand, these sorts of events show just nothing but apathy for it, just absolutely the opposite, checking his watch, at Dover Air Force Base. And when you read the parents and brothers and sisters, their reactions a year later and their thoughts a year later, and they talk about how they all got the exact same photocopied letter from the White House of condolence months after the event happened. You think just what a lack of class. I'm not, I'm a Republican and I voted for Trump. There's plenty of things about Trump that I'm not a big fan of. I'm not, I think that there's plenty of times that he lacked class. But I think it's almost more insulting to be constantly lectured that there's this, President Biden, Uncle Joe, who's, bringing back class to the White House and is an adult, and to show such lack of it, especially for something that is, it's the ultimate sacrifice that you can give is your life for the country.
Yeah, I mean, Trump called these people. He called the parents of the 13, from what I understand. I think he called all of them, and had, an actual conversation with them. And from what I understand, from one of the dads, knew things about these men and women that lost their lives, these service members. And I mean, to get some form letter from the White House.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are simple optics that you can overcome pretty easily, but it's almost as if they just don't care. Nobody cares. It's just, it's not even on their radar, and the checking the watch, it just,
it was checking the watch.
It was really gross.
Yeah, and you like to not mention them during the State of the Union. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of, people hollering out, British Parliament style. I think it was Congresswoman Boebert who did it. But I mean, she's not wrong. Like, you don't mention the 13. No apology yet. Nobody's had to answer for it yet. And then the counteraction of the drone strike,
right,
that ended up murdering, again, to use proper terminology, murdering civilians and children.
Yeah.
And again, like,
well, we're a year later. He just had his Soul of the Nation speech last night with the blood red background and just pure insanity. But it's like no mention of it of them last night, and no mention of Afghanistan last night either, which is bizarre. Yeah. It's just really bizarre.
And you want to talk about the soul of the nation. I mean, you have an entire generation of, I guess I would be considered middle-aged, but middle-aged young American veterans who have left parts of their soul in Afghanistan, which was kind of your initial move as president. And that's not going to get mentioned. That seems just out of touch.
Very out of touch, very tone deaf. These people, they don't self-aware much, as I tend to say to myself.